What happens when a grandmother reaches into her pocket, pulls out a photograph, and renders Dr. Phil McGraw, a man who's heard it all for 25 years, completely speechless? The studio cameras captured the exact moment his hand froze midair, his mouth opened slightly, and for the first time in decades he had no words. What was in that photograph? And why did it silence not just Dr. Phil, but every single person in that room? What happened next became one of the most unforgettable moments in daytime television history. It was supposed to be a standard episode. Family secrets revealed. Read the production schedule. Martha Henderson, 82, had written to the show 6 months earlier. Her letter was different from the thousands they received weekly. It wasn't angry. It wasn't desperate. It was simply honest. Dr. Phil, I've carried something for 60 years. I need to tell the truth before I die. The producers had scheduled her story for the second segment. Nothing special, nothing that suggested what was coming. Martha arrived at the studio that morning wearing her Sunday best. A pale blue cardigan her late husband had given her, sensible shoes, and a small silver locket around her neck. She clutched a worn leather purse tightly. "Are you nervous, Mrs. Henderson?" a production assistant asked as they mic'd her up. "No, dear," Martha replied quietly. "I'm ready." The show opened normally. Dr. Phil walked onto the stage to thunderous applause, welcomed the audience, introduced the theme. Standard protocol. Business as usual. "Today we're talking about secrets that families keep," Dr. Phil announced. "Secrets that poison relationships, that create walls between people who should love each other. And we have a woman here today who's kept a secret for 6 decades. Martha was brought out. She moved slowly, deliberately. The audience applauded politely. She sat in the burgundy leather chair, adjusted her cardigan, placed her purse on her lap. Dr. Phil sat across from her, professional smile in place. "Martha, thank you for being here," Dr. Phil began. "Tell me about this secret you've been carrying." Martha's hands trembled slightly as she opened her purse. "Dr. Phil, in 1963, I was 21 years old. I worked as a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital in Chicago. But nobody in that studio, not Dr. Phil, not the producers, not the audience, was prepared for what she said next. I assisted in the delivery of a baby boy. The mother was 16 years old. Unmarried. The family was prominent. They didn't want the scandal." Martha's voice cracked. "They made me do something I've regretted every single day since." Dr. Phil leaned forward, his expression shifting from professional interest to genuine concern. "What did they make you do, Martha?" "They told the mother her baby died during delivery." Martha's tears began falling. "But he didn't die. He was healthy. Perfect. I held him. I heard him cry." The studio went completely still. Even the camera operators stopped adjusting their equipment. "They gave him to another family," Martha continued. "Wealthy people. Good people, they said. But that mother, that 16-year-old girl, she never knew her son was alive." Dr. Phil's expression changed. This wasn't in the pre-interview notes. This wasn't what the producers had prepared for. "Martha," Dr. Phil's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Are you telling me you participated in an illegal adoption? That you helped steal a baby from his mother?" "I didn't want to," Martha sobbed. "But the doctor, the family, they said it was for the best. They said the girl was too young. That the baby would have a better life. I was 21. I didn't know what else to do." Dr. Phil sat back, processing. His mind was clearly racing. "Martha, why are you telling this story now? After 60 years? Martha's hands went back to her purse. "Because 2 years ago, I found out something. Subscribe and leave a comment. Because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead." Martha pulled out a folded newspaper clipping. Her hands shook as she unfolded it. "The mother, that 16-year-old girl, she spent her entire life looking for her son. She hired private investigators. She contacted adoption agencies. She never gave up." Dr. Phil took the clipping, read it silently. His jaw tightened. When did she pass away? 3 years ago, Martha whispered. She died still searching. Still hoping. Never knowing her son was alive and well. Never knowing I was the one who took him from her. The weight of those words settled over the studio like a physical presence. Audience members were crying openly. Dr. Phil set the clipping down carefully. Martha, you said you found something out 2 years ago. What did you find out? Martha reached into her purse again. This time, she pulled out a photograph. An old Polaroid, edges worn, colors faded. I took this picture, Martha said, her voice barely audible. The night it happened. I don't know why. Maybe I knew I'd need proof someday. Maybe I couldn't let him disappear completely. She held the photograph toward Dr. Phil. He reached for it, then stopped. His hand froze in midair. Dr. Phil paused mid-sentence. The studio went completely silent. Hold on, Dr. Phil said quietly. Then, looking directly at the camera. Stop the tape. The studio erupted in confused murmurs. Stopping production mid-show almost never happened. Producers in the control room scrambled. This wasn't planned. This wasn't protocol. Dr. Phil stood up, walked to the edge of the stage. I need a production supervisor out here. Now. A woman in a headset rushed from backstage. Dr. Phil spoke to her in hushed tones, gesturing to Martha, to the photograph. The woman's eyes widened. She nodded, spoke into her headset, ran back behind the curtain. The audience sat in stunned silence. Martha clutched the photograph to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Dr. Phil returned to his chair, but his entire demeanor had changed. The professional TV host was gone. This was raw, real, unrehearsed. Martha, Dr. Phil said softly, before we go any further, I need to ask you something very important. Have you verified this information? Do you know for certain that the baby in this photograph is the same person you've identified? Martha nodded. I hired a private investigator last year. I gave him all the information I had. Hospital records from 1963. The family name. Dates. Everything. And? He found him, Dr. Phil. The baby is alive. He's 60 years old now. He has children. Grandchildren. He has no idea his entire life began with a lie. Off camera, Dr. Phil made a choice no producer expected. Dr. Phil stood again. He walked back to the edge of the stage, looked directly at his head producer. Get legal on the phone. Get our investigative team. I don't care what time it is or what they're working on. Everything stops until we verify this story completely. He turned to Martha. Mrs. Henderson, I'm going to ask you to come backstage with me. We need to document everything you're telling us. Names, dates, documents. All of it. Because if what you're saying is true, if this man is out there and has no idea about his real mother, then we have a responsibility to handle this correctly. The audience burst into spontaneous applause. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was real life, real consequences, real people. Dr. Phil helped Martha to her feet. As they walked toward the backstage area, Martha turned back to the audience. I've been a coward for 60 years, she said, her voice breaking. I let that mother die without knowing the truth. I can't change that. But maybe I can give her son the truth she never got to tell him. But what happened next is something no one in the room, or watching at home, saw coming. Backstage, Dr. Phil's team worked at lightning speed. They contacted the private investigator Martha had hired. They pulled hospital records from 1963, not easy, but not impossible with the right legal authorization. They cross-referenced birth records, adoption records, census data. 6 hours later, they had confirmation. Everything Martha said was true. The baby had been given to a family named Richardson. They had raised him as their biological son. He never knew he was adopted. His name was Michael Richardson. He lived in Portland, Oregon. He was a high school teacher. Married, 3 children, 2 grandchildren. By all accounts, a good man with a good life. Dr. Phil made another decision that went against all standard protocol. We're not ambushing this man on television, Dr. Phil told his producers. I don't care what makes good TV. We're doing this right. He personally called Michael Richardson. The conversation lasted 47 minutes. Dr. Phil explained who he was, why he was calling, what Martha had revealed. Michael didn't believe it at first. Then he was angry. Then confused. Then devastated. My parents never told me, Michael said over the phone, his voice shaking. They're both gone now. I can't even ask them why. Michael, Dr. Phil said carefully, there's something else you should know. Your birth mother spent her entire life looking for you. She hired investigators. She never gave up. She died before she could find you. The sound of Michael crying came through the phone. Dr. Phil waited, let him process. She wanted me? Michael finally asked. She never stopped wanting you, Dr. Phil confirmed. 2 weeks later, a different episode of Dr. Phil aired. The setup was different. Quieter. More intimate. Just Dr. Phil, Martha Henderson, and Michael Richardson on stage. No audience this time. Just cameras, crew, and 3 people trying to make sense of 60 years of lies. Martha and Michael sat across from each other. Michael held the photograph, the one Martha had taken the night he was born. His infant face looked back at him across 6 decades. I don't know how to feel, Michael admitted. The people who raised me loved me. I had a good childhood. But my birth mother, she died thinking I was dead. Or that I didn't want to know her. Martha reached across the space between them. She would want you to know she loved you. Every day. Until her last breath. Michael took Martha's hand. Do you know her name? My mother's name? Catherine Marie Donovan, Martha whispered. She was beautiful. And brave. And she fought for you until the very end. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. Martha pulled out a weathered leather journal and a small knitted blanket. Your mother made this when she was pregnant. She knitted it before they took you away. Her sister saved it. Michael held the blanket to his face. It still smelled faintly of lavender, Catherine's favorite scent. He broke down completely. Dr. Phil spoke quietly. Michael, our team has located other members of your birth mother's family. You have cousins and aunt, people who would love to meet you. If you want that. I want that, Michael said through tears. I want to know her. Even though she's gone, I want to know her. The legacy moment came weeks later. Dr. Phil's team arranged for Michael to meet Catherine's surviving family at her gravesite. They brought flowers, photos, stories. They brought the journal. Michael read entries on camera. Catherine's words preserved across decades. August 12, 1963. Today you turn 1 month old. I hope you're happy. I hope you know that somewhere, your mother is thinking of you every second. August 12, 2020. Today you turn 57. I'm old now. Sick. But I'm still looking. I'll never stop looking. I love you. Dr. Phil's closing statement was filmed at Catherine's grave. This story represents the worst and best of humanity. The worst, a system that allowed babies to be stolen. The best, a nurse who found the courage to tell the truth. A man who chose forgiveness. A family that welcomed him home. Martha placed a rose on Catherine's grave. I'm sorry you died not knowing. But I promise you, Catherine, your son knows now. He knows you loved him. Michael added his own flower. I wish I'd known you, Mom. But I'm grateful for the time I have now, to learn about you, to tell my children about their grandmother who never gave up. The impact rippled far beyond one family. Dr. Phil's team partnered with adoption reform organizations. No more closed adoptions without consent. Dr. Phil stated publicly. No more babies stolen in the name of what's best. The episode sparked national conversation. Several states introduced Catherine's Law, legislation requiring full disclosure in adoption cases. Michael became an advocate for adoption reform. "I love the family that raised me," he told lawmakers. "But I deserved to know the truth. My mother deserved to know I was alive." Martha established a foundation to help connect families separated by closed adoptions. She passed away 2 years later. At her funeral, Michael gave the eulogy. "Martha did a terrible thing 60 years ago. But she also did something brave. She told the truth. She gave me back my mother's memory. That's enough." Dr. Phil's reflection, recorded for the show's 25th anniversary special. "In 25 years of doing this show, I've heard thousands of stories. But Martha's photograph, that moment when she held up that picture and I realized the magnitude of what she was telling me, that's when I understood that some stories are bigger than television. Some moments require you to stop being a host and start being a human being." He held up the photograph Martha had given him, a copy of the one she'd taken in 1963. "I keep this in my office. It reminds me why we do this work. Not for ratings. Not for entertainment. But because every person who walks onto this stage deserves to be heard. Every secret that's festering deserves to see light. Every wrong that can be righted should be." The photograph became a symbol. That faded Polaroid of an infant Michael, taken by a guilt-ridden nurse on the worst night of her professional life, became the face of adoption reform. It appeared in news articles, congressional hearings, documentary films. It represented both the cruelty of a system that separated families and the courage required to make things right. Michael had it framed. He keeps it beside a photo of Catherine, one of the few pictures her sister had saved. Mother and son, frozen in time, never together in life but forever connected by love that spanned 60 years and finally found its way home. And whenever someone asks Michael about that photograph, about that appearance on Dr. Phil that changed everything, he always says the same thing. "That picture represents the day I found out my mother never stopped loving me." That's all any of us really want to know, isn't it? That we were loved. That we mattered. That someone, somewhere, never gave up on us. Dr. Phil froze that day in the studio because he understood instantly what that photograph represented. Not just one stolen baby, but thousands of families torn apart by lies. And in that moment of silence, in that frozen frame, television stopped being entertainment and became a catalyst for real change. The silence in the studio that day wasn't empty. It was full of grief for Catherine, full of pain for Michael, full of hope that truth, no matter how late, still matters. And sometimes, that's what television should be. Not noise, but silence. Not spectacle, but truth. Not entertainment, but change.